This episode of Harvey Brownstone Interviews is brought to you by the Harvey Brownstone Talk Show Blend Coffee, available at hollywoodblends.com. Everyone's saying it's the best coffee they've ever tasted. Why not give it a try and see for yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Harvey Brownstone, and today's special guest is a legendary music superstar whose deep, soulful baritone voice as one of the Righteous Brothers changed the face and sound of American music and ushered in the era of what became known as blue-eyed soul. The Righteous Brothers brought us dozens of hit songs, including You've Lost That Lovin Feelin, Unchained Melody, You're My Soul and Inspiration, Ebb Tide, Rock and Roll Heaven, Just Once in My Life, and many more. And as a solo artist, our guest had numerous hit singles, including I Can't Make It Alone, Brown Eyed Woman, Don't Know Much, I Still Do, and of course, his mega hit Grammy Award-winning duet with Jennifer Warnes, I've Had the Time of My Life, from the Dirty Dancing soundtrack. Our guest holds the distinction of having had hit records in 4 different decades. And get this, his song, You've Lost That Lovin Feelin, is the most played song in the history of American radio. Over the years, his songs have been featured in many movies, including Major League, The Last Boy Scout, Top Gun, Ghost, and Dirty Dancing, as well as dozens of TV shows. And our guest has received many prestigious accolades and awards. As a member of the Righteous Brothers, he received 2 Grammy Award nominations, and he's been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Vocal Group Hall of Fame, and the National Rhythm and Blues Hall of Fame. And as a solo artist, he received another Grammy nomination in 1972 for his recording of Freedom and Fear, and in 1988, he and Jennifer Warnes won the Grammy Award for Best Pop Performance by a Duo or Group for their magnificent duet, I've Had the Time of My Life. In 2014, our guest released a highly compelling, insightful, and very poignant autobiography entitled The Time of My Life, a Righteous Brothers Memoir. And for the last few months, he's been on a highly successful farewell tour, but he's taken time out of his very busy schedule to speak with me today. I am delighted and deeply honored to welcome Bill Medley to our show. Bill, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I think the interview's done.
We're just getting started.
That was fun. That was wonderful.
Bill, can you remember the moment when you realized that you could sing so well that you could make a living doing it?
Well, no, I never thought I could make a living doing it. I mean, I always sang in church choirs, school choirs, and I just loved to sing. And then when I was 15 years old, I first heard Little Richard, and I said, wow, now I mean, as a 15-year-old boy, that energy and then the older I got into Ray Charles, but I was raised on rhythm and blues and never, I mean, I knew I could sing and other people knew I could sing. And I started out as a songwriter. Actually, I didn't think anybody would care to hear me sing.
Well, do you remember the first time you heard your voice on the radio?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Bobby and I were driving to our job in Southern California where we were raised. And the radio station played our first West Coast hit, Little Latin Loopy Loo. First time it's an out of body experience, you know. I mean, we went from 2 23-year-old guys to 2 13-year-old screaming girls. It's just wonderful. I mean, we pulled over to listen to it, and it's a great feeling.
In your book, Bill, you described yourself as a rebel when you were a teenager, and you said you used that rebel image and behavior to cover up the anxiety and the loneliness you were feeling, mostly because your father was pretty hard on you as a kid. Did you ever finally get your father's love and acceptance and respect?
Yes, I did. My dad was a Texan on a Texan cattle ranch, and just tough. And but not any, probably not any tougher than other families. But yeah, when I was about 30, I went to his retirement. He was a sheriff, communication. And I went to his retirement party, and some girls got me over in the corner and they said, you know, your dad is just the greatest guy in the world. And he's so funny and we just love him. And I said, could you point him out to me? What dad are you talking about? And from that point on, I really realized that he was a very, very sweet man. And I came along as a child. Came along as kind of a surprise that he probably didn't need. I was the third child. And my brother and sister were very straight and very wonderful and didn't ever cause any trouble. And so I guess I figured, well, here's how I'll get attention. I'll be the jerk. But no, we got along great ever since I was about 30. And he was actually a very wonderful, wonderful guy.
I'm so glad that that all worked out. Now, over the years, there's been a lot said and written about your relationship with Bobby Hatfield. And although some people seem to think the two of you didn't get along or didn't like each other, I have to say, Bill, that after reading your book, I think that Bobby was simply overwhelmed by the fame and the success that you were both having. And that's why he behaved the way he did. Is that a fair comment?
That's a very fair comment. I mean, he was fine when we were having West Coast hits like Little Latin Loopy Loo and My Bed. But when we had Lovin' Feelin, it just became big business. I mean, when we were doing the early records, we were just, you know, getting paid 500 a night, and we thought we died and went to heaven, and we would talk about what we were going to do when the fad was over. And then Lovin' Feelin hit, and it wasn't as easy and no, yeah, we'll do it. That we'll do. It really became big business, and I just don't think that's what Bobby signed up for. I know it sounds kind of silly, but it was a little overwhelming to him, and and I took it as a, oh man, are you kidding? This is the greatest thing that could happen to us. So yeah, I think, and he handled it okay. I mean, it he would get a little nervous on stage and all that, and but yeah, no, we didn't hate each other or anything like that. The truth is we never argued ever because we wouldn't confront each other. If he would could have told me what bothered him about me and vice versa, it probably would have been an easier thing. But the good news is we didn't argue. The bad news is we didn't argue because we never came up with a solution for what we were going through or and but we worked it out. We kind of figured out, you know, okay, you're good at this, you do this, you're good at this, you do this, and it worked out fine.
Do you think that Bobby was ever truly comfortable in his own skin?
I don't know. I think being the Righteous Brothers just kind of was just something that he didn't sign up for, that we were going to be that big. We were just singing rock and roll because we accidentally had a hit. I think he was great with his family, his children, and his wife, and but I I'm not sure any of us are comfortable in our skin. I'm very uncomfortable in my skin. I social anxiety when I was younger and all that. But uh, yeah, I think Bobby just had a little bit of problem of being as as big or as known as we were.
You reunited with Bobby in 1974, and you continued to work with him until he passed away in 2003. And you said in your book, Bill, that your best times working with Bobby were during the last 15 years of his life. What made those years so special?
Well, it was pretty simple. I mean, we were 23 years old when we had Little Latin Oopie Loo. We were 25 with Lovin' Feelin'. And then when we went back together, in the 90s, we were grown men with wives and families, and we just had a totally different outlook on everything. And we we were both very comfortable in the fact that the audiences were still there, and like I say, we were adults instead of children, and you just handled things different, and it was just easier. It was easier for him. He was comfortable with it. I was comfortable with it, so it turned out to be pretty wonderful.
And yet, I was very surprised when I read in your book that you never truly committed fully to being a righteous brother until 1990. What did you mean by that?
Well, when Bobby and I were in a group, there was five of us, and we were the Paramours. And a friend of mine, Ray Maxwell, who owned Moonglow Records, came in to see me. And in our set, we would do Little Latin Oopie Loo. And he said, "Boy, I love that song. We ought to record it." And Bobby and I said, "Okay." And so we went in, and we didn't even have a name, but some Black Marines were calling us the Righteous Brothers. So we figured, well, that's a cool name. So we did that. But we didn't plan to be together. We just put this record out for the heck of it. And it took off. Actually, it didn't take off right away, but uh, our contract for the nightclub that we were working ended. And as we were walking out the back door, and it's possible that Bobby and I would never see each other again because we were just two different guys. I mean, we loved each other, but we just probably ran in two different circles. And a friend of ours stopped us and said, "I want you to come down to this teenage dance place that I'm playing as the Righteous Brothers." And we said, "Oh, we don't," because it was all surf music. It was a rendezvous ballroom. And when he told us what it paid, we said, "Okay, we can do it." But we went down, and we still weren't partners. We just went down as the Righteous Brothers, and they went and bought Little Latin Oopie Loo, and it became a hit. And Phil Spector wanted to record us, and he asked Barry and Cynthia to write us a song, and they wrote Lovin' Feelin'. But Bobby and I never, ever, ever asked for anything. We did a show, Shindig. Jack Good came to us. Phil Spector came to us. Ray Maxwell came to us. And so it just kind of happened. But in the 90s, when these songs were put in the movies, and we were like bigger than ever after these movies. I mean, kids would go home to their folks and say, "Boy, wait until you hear this new group, the Righteous Brothers." And they said, "Well, you're here because of the Righteous Brothers." So when we got like really big again in the 90s, and Bobby and I really discussed it, and I said, "Well, if we're going to do this," and we were being offered some pretty big money, and it was, I said, "We really have to approach this, you know, correctly." And so that's when I said, "Okay, let's do this. I am a righteous brother."
Thank God you did. A lot of people seem to think that you invented the term blue-eyed soul, but in actual fact, it was the Black radio stations that used those words to let the audience know that you and Bobby were white. And I've got to tell you, Bill, I've always been troubled by the term blue-eyed soul because it suggests that the race of the singer is relevant when it shouldn't be, don't you think?
I absolutely think so. I think it was and he had to do it, but it was just a drag that you would have to say to your audience that this is a white guy or this is a black guy or a Hispanic guy. I mean, it's music. Music is music, and music is for everybody. Every religion, every gender, just everything.
Well, I think it's very noteworthy that you and Bobby were one of the first white artists to sing soul music. In fact, you were invited to be the first white group to headline at the Apollo Theater in New York, but you declined the invitation. Why?
Actually, the mayor called our agent, and at the time there was some riots and stuff going on at that time, and the mayor was afraid for us to do the show because he thought maybe somehow, some way, somebody would do some harm to us or something. And we didn't feel that. Bobby and I still wanted to do it, but our agents and managers said no, maybe later. And but it was a huge honor and would have been so much fun to do.
Yeah, that's really a shame. You opened for the Beatles on their first American tour. You did about 50 shows with them. You also toured with the Rolling Stones. Have you kept in touch with any of the remaining Beatles and Rolling Stones?
I haven't stayed in touch with the Beatles or Paul or Ringo, but the Stones, they really became good friends. And I think a few years ago, I went to see them. The I had a friend that was real close to the Stones, and they said, "Well, you're friends with Bill. Bring Bill out here. We want to see Bill." So they said, "But don't bring him to what was it? Don't bring him to Vegas or New York or Hollywood because there'll be too many celebrities and it'll be nuts and we won't be able." So I think we went to, oh, I don't know where we went, but it was out in the middle of nowhere. And they still did 20,000 people. And it was great because they came and got me and took me backstage, and all the Stones were there except Mick. I didn't see Mick, and got to talk to, you know, everybody for probably about an hour. So it was great. Yeah, I've been real fortunate with having some good friends in the business, and I I like that. I take that as a badge of honor that, it's always nice when real talented people, think you're okay at what you do.
Well, that's for sure. And I know that you've had a lot of really talented people with you and around you. I'm very curious to know when you first heard Barry Mann and Phil Spector play you the song, You've Lost That Lovin Feelin, and they played it with a faster tempo, and you thought it would be perfect for the Everly Brothers, not you guys. What was your reaction when you first heard that song?
Well, we knew it was a great song, and but Phil and Barry sang it for us, and they both have real kind of high, thin voices. And Barry even admits that him and Cynthia kind of wrote the song that would be kind of a four top song. I'll be there, da-da-da. But and so it was like faster and higher. It was like, you never close your eyes anymore when I kiss. You'll do, with the background. But I could, so they sang it for us. And I said, wow, that's a great song, but it's a great song for the Everly Brothers, which I love the Everly Brothers, by the way. So they said, well, at least sing it for a bit. So we tried it, and I couldn't get to the "You lost that love." I couldn't get to the high note, so we lower it, and every time we would lower it, Phil would slow it down. So it went from "You never close your eyes anymore" to "You never close your eyes." Whole different song. So I guess I should get royalties because I can't hit the high note.
I can't believe that I've got Bill Medley in front of me singing that just to me. You have no idea the shivers I'm feeling.
Oh, come on.
You know, you mentioned Phil Spector. He produced Lovin' Feelin. He had a reputation for being incredibly eccentric, egotistical, but you worked very close with him and you wrote that you really loved working with him. So why didn't you make more records together?
Well, we wanted to. Bobby and I both. Well, I certainly wanted to stay with Phil because I knew if Phil wasn't doing it, I was going to have to end up. I produced the early Righteous Brothers, and and actually Phil asked me to do the albums. He would do the singles, and I would do the albums. But he was a little eccentric. He wasn't eccentric. He just wanted people in those days. He just wanted people to think that he was very eccentric and weird and this and that. And I guess you have to be a little weird wanting people to think that you're weird. But we got along with him pretty good because he pretty much worked with girls, like Darling Love and all the girl groups, and we were kind of two guys from the street, and so he he was very sweet with us and worked us very hard, but thank God he did. He always made it better. But apparently Phil worked his way into being as eccentric as he wanted to be.
Well, it's very well known that Phil Spector wanted to be the star of his recordings. He didn't really like it when the singers became bigger stars than he did. Is it true that at one point, Bill, he tried to get you to leave the Righteous Brothers so he could record you as a solo artist?
Yeah, when Lovin' Feelin was number one, he had a meeting with me and he said he wanted me to leave the Righteous Brothers. And it was his way of kind of trying to break up the Righteous Brothers because Lovin' Feelin became a Righteous Brother record instead of a Phil Spector production. And that just didn't go down good with him. And the we were still signed to Moonglow Records when we were with Phil, but Phil leased the remainder of our contract from Moonglow, and they got into a dispute about something, money probably. And so Moonglow was saying, you can't record with Phil. And Phil is saying, we got to go in the studio right now. So we were caught between a rock and a hard place. And our agent, Jerry Parencho, kind of helped it all out when he went to MGM, and MGM said, we will, and this is in 65, 66, MGM offered us $1 million to go with them. That was a lot of money back then. And so we just were caught, like I said, caught between a rock and a hard place. I didn't want to leave. I thought it was like paradise, heaven to be able to go into a studio and be able to do a Barry and Cynthia song or a Carole King and Jerry song or from the greatest writers in the world. I thought I died and went to heaven. And I knew if we went with MGM that it was going to fall back on me. And it did. I produced Soul and Inspiration, but I just did what I thought Phil would do. I just ripped him off,
Well, it
and
sure worked. But
it
I
worked.
have to tell you that in 2003, when the Righteous Brothers were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, a lot of people in the music business said that Phil Spector had something to do with why it took so long Do you agree with that?
I definitely agree with it. He didn't once again, he just didn't want any of his artists to have their own reputation and their own, their own success. He wanted to be the success. Phil Spector should go in. So, and he was very involved in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Him and Ahmet Ertegun, and very, and when Phil had his legal problems and went to prison, uh, every one of his artists went in to the rock and roll, had the Ronettes and the Crystals, Darlene Love, the Rights. I think we were the first ones to go in under the Phil Spector banner. But yeah, I think he wanted to keep all of his artists, not just the Righteous Brothers, but all of us out of there. He wanted to be the guy.
So, Bill, I have to tell you, in preparing for this interview, I pulled out all of my old 45 singles and I found Unchained Melody. And I was surprised to see that Unchained Melody was actually on the B side of another record called Hung on You. That was the A side. Were you surprised when Unchained Melody became a hit?
Well, we were both shocked. I mean, like I said earlier, Phil asked me to do the albums. So we were getting ready to do the album. I think it was the Just Once in My Life album. And Bobby would do a single and I would do a single. There was only so many duets we could come up with. And Bobby had always sang Unchained Melody. And we were huge Roy Hamilton fans, and we learned it from Roy Hamilton. And so Bobby sang Unchained Melody and did a phenomenal job, obviously. I think he sang it once. I think that what you heard on record is him singing it once. And Phil was famous for, and he had had Carole King write "Hung on You," which was a great song and a great record. But for some reason, and like I was going to say, Phil was famous for putting such a bad record on the B side. That's when they had a B side, that they would only play "Hung on You," his side. But for some reason, every disc jockey in the country flipped it over and played Unchained Melody, and that probably didn't go down very, very good either.
Wow, what a song that is. In 1965, you performed alone at the Brooklyn Fox Theater without Bobby for a show produced by Murray the K, and you were a huge success, Bill. And I'm wondering if that experience of performing solo gave you the confidence to know that one day in the future, you would be able to have a successful solo career.
Yeah, I was very surprised between you and me that the audience accepted me so wonderful during I think we did 5 shows a day. During the day, it was all white audiences. At night, it was all black audiences, and both audiences treated me exactly the same. They were just wonderful. So yeah, I I obviously knew then that if I had to do this on my own, that I could do it. I don't know that I would be successful doing it on my own, but I knew I could do it.
Well, you left the Righteous Brothers in 1968, and your very first hit song that you recorded after breaking up with Bobby was I Can't Make It Alone, written by Carole King. Is the title of that song just a coincidence, or is that really how you were feeling?
Now that it was a coincidence, and Carol, Carol and Jerry wrote it. They had written the song for us, I think, like a year earlier than I recall. I was still a Righteous Brother, but I loved the song. I loved the song. So when we broke up, that was just the first song I wanted to do. It didn't even dawn on me that I was saying I can't make it alone, but apparently I was right. But I just always loved the record, loved it.
While your song Brown Eyed Woman, written by Barry and Cynthia, is about an interracial couple. You were dating Darlene Love at the time, I think,
Yeah.
and she sang backup on the record. Is that one of your favorite recordings, Bill?
It's absolutely one of my favorites. I learned so much by doing that record because I can remember Barry Mann and I sitting down with the girls. Actually, there was about six girls, Darlene and her group, the Blossoms, and Mary Clayton, and some other great, great singers. And it just sounded so good with just the piano and those voices. And I just fell in love with that. So I still kind of been drawn to doing that in our shows or on records. And yeah, it was so much fun singing with Darlene. She just got one of the greatest voices in the world. And I could still listen to that record and hear her in the background singing her heart out. It was wonderful.
Well, one of the reasons I really wanted to have you on this show is to tell you that on March the 12th, 1969, I was preparing for my bar mitzvah, and my parents allowed me to take a break and watch the Grammy Awards. And you sang Hey Jude. You stopped the show. I think you got like a 5 minute standing ovation. It was phenomenal. How did that make you feel?
It was an out of body experience. I was very honored that they asked me to do one of the songs that was nominated. There was five songs, and I chose Hey Jude. And everybody said, Hey Jude, why are you going to do Hey Jude? And I just knew that I could. It's kind of like my new album that I have out, Straight from the Heart. I just knew I could do that song. It felt good for my voice, and I had a great arrangement, and I kind of took it off into a gospel ending. And Glenn Campbell was sitting in the front, and he said, "Sing your ass off, Medley." And then all the black artists and people that were at the Grammys started yelling and screaming, and it just turned me on. And finally got finished with the song, and I took a bow, and it was a lovely standing ovation. And I left the stage, and Bill Cosby was the host, and he came back and said, "Bill, you got to come back. They won't stop applauding." And yeah, it was probably one of the sweetest moments of my career.
I'll never, never forget it. And I think the reason people react the way they do when you sing is because your voice seems to be driven by your emotions like anger, pain, loneliness, sadness. And there's another thing, you don't seem to be thinking when you sing. We just get this raw emotion right from your heart. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 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 it makes perfect sense. When I started out, apparently there was a little anger in me, frustration, anger. And I can remember walking off stage and having a handprint of the microphone in my hand because I would hold it. Yeah, I don't think at all on stage. I just it just goes from my heart to my mouth, and that's about it. I don't. I've worked with other artists, and I said, quit thinking, just sing the song. That's a great song. You're a great singer. Quit trying to sing it. Tell the story, and that's just the way I sing, and it's worked out real good for me. If they told me to sing, I might would be in trouble. I don't
Well,
know.
I've actually heard you say in an interview more than once that you consider yourself to be more of a storyteller than a singer. And that surprised me because it made me wonder whether you realize that you're actually an amazing singer. Do you get that, Bill?
Sometimes, sometimes I'll listen to, like Brown Eyed Woman and a song I did, Piece Brother Piece, right after that. I listen to those today and I go, wow, yeah, that kid's pretty good. But he was a kid. It was Bill Medley being 30 years old. And yeah, but sometimes I listen, I go, I bet all singers, I think they could have done it better. When they listen to the song years later, oh boy, I could have done that a lot better. And I knew I could sing, but did I feel like one of the singers or somebody, that was admired or something, like I admire Bruno Mars and Michael McDonald and guys like that are just great singers. And so I just never considered myself in that league.
I wish I could do something to convince you. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but in 1972, you auditioned for the role of Jesus in the movie Jesus Christ Superstar, but they wanted you to sing in the same key as the album, and you're a baritone, not a tenor, so you didn't get the role. Was that a big disappointment for you?
No, not at all. They called me when they were going to make the album, Jesus Christ Superstar. Actually, I think the writers called me and said, "We want you to do Jesus." Now, Jesus would have been a baritone then, but I said, "No, no, I don't want to do it." I was busy doing some other stuff, and I was afraid to jump in that lane. And then when it went to Broadway, they called me again and asked me if I would do Broadway. And I said, no, I don't think so. The truth is, I was kind of afraid of New York. I'm a California guy, and New York seemed very fast, and it just seemed. And now I love New York. I could live in New York in a heartbeat, but I turned it down. And then when they were going to make the movie, they called me again. They said, "Please, man, would you come up and at least audition?" So I got my friend Lee Farrell, who is Will Ferrell's dad, and we learned the song that Jesus sang in the play or the movie, and I sang it, but I sang it down here, where I talk. And he said, "Can you?" Norman Juliuson, that was the producer, and he said, or director, he said, "Can you raise it up?" I said, "Well, that would be very difficult." He said, "We want to do the movie in the same key that the album was recorded." And I said, I can't get up there. I'm not a first tenor." I said, "And by the way, Jesus was a baritone." He said, "Well, listen, would you try out for, I don't know, the devil or one of those guys?" And I said, "No, I'm Jesus or I'm nobody." And I left, and he just laughed, but it was a real honor that they were uh, keep asking me to do that. It would have been, I guess, it would have been fun to do the Broadway show, but no, the kid that did it was a friend of mine, and he just killed it, and he did a great job.
Well, I'm glad that you've cleared up now that Jesus was a baritone because I don't think a lot of people realize that. I had to laugh, Bill, when I was doing my research. I saw that in 1985, you released a country album called Still Hung Up on You. It was a great album. You were nominated by the Academy of Country Music for Best New Vocalist of the Year. How did it feel to be called a new vocalist at that point in your life?
I felt very young. It was nuts. I mean, I've been around. I mean, this was years after Lovin' Feelin' and all that stuff, but it was new for country music, and I was real honored that the Country Music Awards was, you know, ushering me in. And oddly enough, Vince Gill was also nominated, and he won. And we never heard from him again. But now he became a huge artist and a great, great guy, a good friend. And he's now singing a duet with me on my new album.
Oh, that's going to be amazing. And what a full circle moment that is. In 2007, you recorded one of my favorite albums, Damn Near Righteous,
Oh,
One of my favorites, because one of the tracks is the classic Beach Boys song "In My Room," and you sang it with Phil Everly of the Everly Brothers and Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys. Can you tell us a little about the experience of recording that song with those legendary singers?
well, once again, it was a big honor because Brian and I were real good friends, and I know he had gone off the rails a little bit, and no, well, not a little bit, quite a bit, and I was truly a monster fan of the Everly Brothers. They were probably one of the only white acts. The Everly Brothers and Dion and the Belmonts, I thought were phenomenal. I thought the Everly Brothers were two guys that sounded like one voice. And Phil Everly wrote a song that he wanted me to do, and I kind of liked it, but I kind of didn't want to do it on the. I said, man, why if they want me, why don't I do a duet with Phil? I would love to sing with Phil. Well, I'd love to sing with Don and Phil, but Phil was around, and I said, I love the song In My Room. I just love it. So they called Brian, and Brian said, I would love to do it. So we we sat around, learned it, and we did it, and it's one of my favorite records.
Oh, mine too. But over the years, Bill, I think it's fair to say that you've turned down some great songs like We've Got to Get Out of This Place, which was a hit for the Animals, and the Carole King song You've Got a Friend, and He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother, which went to the Hollies, and the Elvis Presley song In the Ghetto. What was it about those songs that you thought were not right for your voice?
Well, in the ghetto, first off, I was doing all these kind of protest songs like Brown Eyed Woman, Peace Brother Peace, and it was like right at that moment, probably in the 70s, 69, 70s, and I just didn't want to do another peace song. And it felt like a peace song to me. I loved the song. I can certainly see why Elvis wanted to do it. So I turned it down, and Mac Davis was a good friend. I'm glad he offered that song to me. But You Got a Friend, I was recording with at A&M Records, and Herb Albert was producing me, and we were listening to songs. I said, "Oh God, I love that song." He said, "Well, that's Carole King." Well, I said, "Oh, she's a good friend. Why don't you call her and tell her I want to do that song?" She said, "Well, I will come in and play piano, and I'll bring my husband in, Charlie, to play bass." So we came in, we went into the studio, recorded You Got a Friend, and God, it sounded so good. Sounded like a hit record. And thank God I had one of my friends from Orange County come up with me, and he was in the studio, and Carol sang some harmony with me, and it was just phenomenal. And Herb Albert, God bless him, said, "No, I don't think so."
Are you serious?
Yeah, yeah. But listen, making hit records, you never know in the studio if you got a hit. I didn't know if Lovin' Feelin' was a hit record. It was too long, too slow. I was singing too low, but boy, you got a friend just sounded like a hit record. I would have bet money on that one. But you just don't know. You don't know. And obviously Herb knows what he's talking about. He's very successful.
Well, is that recording available anywhere of you and Carol?
I don't think so. I don't think so. And boy, I would love to have a version of that. Uh, me singing. I've never heard or saw me singing "Hey Jude" on the Grammys. I've never seen it or heard. So, but I would like to.
Oh, yeah, that was a real moment. Well, I should point out, just for the sake of accuracy, you did end up recording He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother for the Rambo 3 soundtrack. So that must have felt good to finally record the song.
Oh, I loved it. Because I always loved the song. And when you're hot, and I wanted Soul and Inspiration was supposed to follow up Lovin' Feelin', but Phil and Barry Mann and Cynthia got in some sort of an argument, and so that song was put aside. So when we left Phil, I called Barry and said, "Would you send me that song that we were working on?" He said, "I didn't even finish it." I said, "Well, please finish it and send it to me." And he sent it to me, but on that, and it was a cassette. So that's how long that's how long ago it was. On that cassette was Kicks that Paul Revere ended up doing. We Got to Get Out of This Place. All these songs, and I turned them all down because I was just looking for one, soul and inspiration, one song. And when you're hot, you got the greatest writers in the world writing for you. So, and you can only do so many songs. So you're gonna jump over a lot of great songs.
For sure. Well, don't worry, you made up for it with all the ones you did pick. I have to ask you about your friendship with Elvis. You got to know him when you were both performing in Las Vegas. And you said in your book, Bill, that you could see, I'm using your words here, a deep insecurity, vulnerability, and fragility underneath the outer shell of confidence that he projected. Do you think he was a happy person?
Well, I knew Elvis in the early 60s. He used to, before Love and Feeling, he would come to our shows and watch us. And but when I went to the Hilton where he was working in Vegas, we got very close, and he would call me in between shows and ask me to come down to the dressing room, and it was just him and I and his hairdresser. So we talked a lot, just him and I. So we really got to know each other. Him and I were very, very similar in character. I mean, I was very insecure and all that, and lonely but we also rode motorcycles and all that nonsense. So I really got to know him as Elvis, as the human being, as this guy before he became the biggest thing in the world. And and I didn't think much of it until later on in the years when it started to show, with his weight and this and that. And I I I can now look back and say, boy, some of that stuff is coming out. And unfortunately, or fortunately, his boys that, the Memphis Mafia or whatever, and they were great guys, really great guys, and they loved Elvis, and Elvis loved them. But unfortunately, he got, yesed to death. Yeah, you're this, you're that, yeah, you're gonna, and that's not good for any entertainers. I will ask opinions, but I'll end up using my own opinion. But when you're surrounded by, eight or nine guys that'll tell you exactly what you want to hear, and you're not surrounded by anybody that can tell you what to do, it's pretty difficult. Pretty difficult. I remember my manager at the time being in the studio with Elvis recording, and Elvis came to him and said, "What do you think I should do at this portion of the song?" He said, "You should just be Elvis. Be Elvis. Be you. Do that stuff. Do what you do, and quit doing what everybody else is telling you to do, and just be you." And that's what I would have told him. I would have told him the same thing. The last thing that Elvis ever said to me, I went to introduce him to my son, and it was after a show, and he was just wrecked. And the last thing he ever told me, he said, "Bill, it's going to be all right." And about 6 months later, he passed away.
Well, 7 years after Elvis passed away, you wrote and recorded a song called Old Friend. And
Yeah.
one of the lines in the lyrics says, "Would you be here if I could have been there?" Bill, were you saying in that song that you think you might have been able to save Elvis?
Well, I knew I wanted to. You know, if I could have or not, I don't know. But I would have had a shot at it because I know he knew how I felt and vice versa. And we were kind of cut from the same cloth, not star wise. He was Elvis Presley. But yeah, the first time he went into the hospital for something, I called the boys and told them I want to come to Memphis and I want to come to the hospital and I want to talk to Elvis. And somehow, some way, it turned out that I wasn't I wasn't capable of doing that. I'm sure they knew that I was going to come in and because they knew my reputation with Elvis and they knew that I probably was going to say some harsh things, and I was. I was. I had nothing to lose. I mean, I was willing to retire for a year and go out on the road with him, or just go jump on a couple of motorcycles and and become Elvis again. But no, but they said no. You better stay home. And I don't know if that was the boys or the colonel or I don't know, but and I don't know if I could have made a difference because I'm sure everybody else would have jumped in his face and you know everybody wanted to hold on to their job.
Yeah, they only cared about themselves way more than they cared about him. And
Yeah,
then
I'm afraid so.
you said in your book that after Bobby Hatfield passed away in 2003, a part of you realized that the Righteous Brothers, as you had always known them, also died. And you had to face a major adjustment in your life and as a person and as a performer. How did Bobby's death impact you as a performer?
Well, it like when I left in '68, Bobby was alive, so in the back of my mind there was always the Righteous Brothers. God, and I hate to say it because it sounds terrible, but if everything fell apart for Bill Medley, I knew I could go back and be a Righteous Brother. But when Bobby passed away, it really dawned on me that, oh man, the Righteous Brothers are done. And the Righteous Brothers are over and Bobby's gone. And Bobby and Bill are the Righteous Brothers. And so it kind of weirded me out. Didn't weird me out so much vocally or anything, but we tried to do a kind of a tribute tour right after his death. The next year, he died in November, and so we did a farewell tour, and I got about halfway through it and just said I can't do it anymore. I wasn't ready for it. The audience wasn't ready for it. The audiences showed up, but you could tell they just it was too soon, and it was way too soon for me. So we stopped the tour.
Well, thank God you once again reinvented yourself in such an appealing way. I have to mention in 2014, one of your best albums, in my opinion, is a wonderful blues album called Your Heart to Mine. You paid tribute to many of the Black artists who influenced you, like Ray Charles, B.B. King, Sam Cooke, many others. And you included an original song that you wrote called This Will Be the Last Time. I'm wondering what inspired you to write that song.
Well, first off, I have to clear up. That was the blues album, and the Straight from the Heart is my brand new album. So this was the blues album you're talking about. Yeah, yeah. I wrote the song. This will be the last time I ever have the blues. I don't I don't think I was writing it about me. I think I was just trying to write a blues song that could stand up to all these great blues songs from Ray Charles, Drowned in My Own Tears, and Bobby Bland song and B.B. King. So I just wanted to write a song that this will be the last time I ever have the blues, even though I've been married 4 times. So I know that I've probably said several times, this will be the last time ever I ever have the blues. And then sure enough, 2 years later, I have the blues again. So the song is very honest, that this will be the last time you ever see me cry, or this will be the last time you hear me say, I love you. And so it came from experience, but I was truly trying to write a good blues song. And don't know if I did or not, but it was fun to do.
It was a great song. You know,
Thank
you talk about writing from experience. Your life has been so full of incredible moments, Bill. I just want to mention a few of them. Just listen to this. You were in Raquel Welch's first movie, A Swing in Summer. You were a featured cast member in the classic TV show Shindig. You got to do a comedy sketch with Jack Benny on stage in Lake Tahoe. When you were performing in Las Vegas at the Sands Hotel, Frank Sinatra gave you some tips on how to take care of your voice. You sang with Peggy Lee on The Ed Sullivan Show. You performed for President and Mrs. Clinton at the White House. You were close friends with Elvis, Johnny Cash, Kenny Rogers, Connie Stevens, Goldie Hawn, Lola Falana, Sylvester Stallone, and many more. You even guest starred in an episode of Cheers. And I'm just scratching the surface, Bill. When you look back at your life, are there times when you have to pinch yourself to believe the life you've led?
Yeah, like listening to you run off all those things, it makes me feel like, man, I've been a busy boy. Yeah, I oddly enough, I still was, even when we became, with Love and Feeling very big and this and that, I always stayed home. I lived in Hollywood for a year, but I always stayed home. I was raised in Santa Ana, Orange County, which was 40, 50 miles from Hollywood. So I always kept my head on pretty good. My best friends were guys I went to junior high school with, and so I just was a singer. That guy was a plumber. This guy did that, and so I was just the singer, and so that kind of kept my head on straight. But to hear you rattle off that stuff, that's that's pretty amazing. I'm pretty proud of that guy.
I
Uh,
am too. I'm sure proud to be able to say that I got to meet him and interview him. And I'm wondering, when I read your book, I kept thinking this story would make a great movie or a mini series or maybe a Broadway musical. What do you think?
I've been asked, well, several times to do a documentary, and there just wasn't enough film on us to do a documentary. When we were doing all that stuff, we just didn't pay attention to filming us or this. So we had no film on it other than doing the Bob Hope TV show or the Dean Martin show. But I've also been asked to do a movie based on the book. And I said, I will do it. And I've been asked several times to do a Righteous Brother movie or to be involved. And they would always write, and I forget what they call it, some, I will say like a demo record, a demo writing of what the movie would be. And they were
Oh, I
always,
think they call that a treatment.
yeah, treatment. You're exactly right. Thank you, Harvey. I appreciate it. And every one that I wrote was just not us, it just wasn't us. They were trying to make too much of this or too much of that. And, we were just two young, kind of street guys. And we were more like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kids than anything. And we felt very fortunate and very lucky. And we did things our way and we sang our way, even though when we started out, it was very uncommercial to be two white guys singing black music. That just wasn't going on at the time. white stations wouldn't play because they thought you were black. Black stations couldn't play because they played all black music. Not a racial thing, just that's what they did. So when they, so when I wrote the book and they wanted to do a movie on the book, that interested me. And even when I met with them, and like I say, I'm 84 years old now, and I was probably 83 or 82 when they asked me, and I knew that I would have to be heavily involved for it to come out to be a real, honest, righteous brother movie, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And I knew that I just didn't have time to do it. I mean, and Harvey, it's probably about a 4 year, easily 3 year period to do it. And I knew it was a great story. I knew that my life had great ups and downs in it, real ups and real downs. And so I knew that was a good story, but I was never interested in us, doing a movie because to do it honestly, the right way, and it just would have been too tough to do, sometimes too tender to do, because like you've alluded to the fact, that Bobby and I certainly had our ups and downs. Jesus, I don't think there's a group out there today that is still together that started back then, or even it's too difficult. Especially with duets, you're both basically leading men, and if if we were a quartet or something, and one of us was the lead singers, we could pull it off. And but boy, when you're a duet, and Bobby had his opinions, I had my opinions, the managers, so it just became tough. So there was the different rubs between Bobby and I. They were never amazing or terrible, but we would have them. And like I say, we never talked about what bothered us and this and that, which we should have. We would have done a lot better if we had better communication, because I certainly was willing to bend to what was bothering Bobby about me, and probably vice versa, because we loved each other. That's what you do for your brother or your good friend. So yeah, doing a movie or a Broadway play. I always thought maybe a Broadway play would be better than a movie because of the music. I was since Jersey Boys became so big, I went to see Jersey Boys, and I just felt that 99% of the reason this is a big hit is because of that music.
Oh, 100%. And I think the other really important factor that would resonate with people is the strong connection you have with your fans, especially Vietnam veterans who often
Right.
tell you that your songs really helped them get through the darkest times of the war. That must be so gratifying, Bill.
It's the most gratifying thing in our career. We would be singing places of this and that, and guys would come up in wheelchairs and I just 3 days ago received another, something like a coin or something that was presented to them, and they would give it to us and thanking us for our music. We said, my God, are you kidding? We should be giving you what we should have been giving them when they came back from the war. We should have, the greatest gratitude in the world. So for them, and I can remember several times when we would meet people after the show, once in a while, a couple would come up and the wife would tell us that how much they loved the music and this and that. And the wife would say, my husband is a huge fan. He's a veteran and loved your music in Vietnam, and it was brought a lot of home, to Vietnam, but he won't tell you. And I would look back over her shoulder and you would see this big, great veteran with tears in his eyes. And it just makes me want to cry now. It's just the best reward you could get. Going into the
So,
Hall of Fame is great, but boy, having those guys love you and helping them through that ugly, ugly situation was wonderful.
so Bill, have you reached the point in your life where you're truly able to soak up and truly absorb and really appreciate how beloved you are by your fans?
Only when I
Do
talk
you
to you,
get it?
I only when I talk to you. I want to talk to you every day.
Well, believe me, I could make that happen very easily. Well, I've only got one more question for you, and it's this. How would you like to be remembered by the world?
Boy, I've been asked that before, and I just don't know. A guy who has had a great family, great children, great grandchildren, and now I'm a great grandpa. I have a year and a half old grandson now. I just would like to be remembered as a singer and just somebody that got to do what he loved, and that maybe it touched a lot of people and helped a lot of people. And do I think that I'm anything special or anything like that? Absolutely not. I just feel like one of the boys in the club. I've always felt like the lead singer. Both Bobby and I have always felt like we were the lead singer of the band. We were never the stars. And so I just would like to be remembered as a decent human being.
Well, I think you're going to be remembered as much more than that. I think the public will remember you as an extraordinary artist who made people connect with their emotions through your music. That's how I feel.
Well, God bless you, man. I thank you. And you know what? I've been asked that. How does that make you feel? And I said the truth is, I try not to think about it because I I just I've seen other artists want to try and hold up to their reputation and this and that, and they get well, Elvis, maybe for one, but they get a little lost between who they are and what people from their music or movies or whatever think they are. I just always want to try and stay the guy that I know I am, not the guy they think I am. Now on stage, I'll sing all the hits because that's what they want to hear, and I'm very proud of them. But it's still just Bill Medley from Santa Ana.
Well, Bill Medley from Santa Ana, it has been an enormous honor meeting you, having this opportunity to celebrate your incredible life and career. Thank you for all the great music, the great performances. Thank you so much for taking the time to appear on our show, Bill.
Well, it's been a real honor, and Harvey, you did a great, great job, and I appreciate it. And like I say, I wish I could talk to you every morning and say, okay, that's who I am.
You've got my number, and I will gladly reinforce that amazing persona anytime you need it. Our guest has been the legendary Bill Medley. His book, The Time of My Life, A Righteous Brother's Memoir, is available on Amazon and wherever books are sold. You can get more information about Bill Medley and the Righteous Brothers by going to their official website, righteousbrothers.com. My name is Harvey Brownstone. Thank you all for joining us. See you next time. Thank you to my producer, Steve Silver, my managers, Rick Marcelli and Robin Bragg Marcelli at the Marcelli Company in Hollywood, my director of programming, Robert Monaghan, my PR directors, Eileen Shapiro and Jimmy Starr, and my entire team at the XPTV1 network in the UK.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out all the great interviews on the Harvey Brownstone Interviews YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified when new videos are posted.